Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Small Business Stories. I am Dr. LL, Loralyn Mears, the founder of Steeris, bringing guests from all over the world. Today's guest is coming to us live from Dallas, Texas. His name's William Davis, and he's the founder of, his eponymous company, William C. Davis. And what he does and is a seasoned leadership expert. He spent a few decades now proving that leadership is not just about authority, right, which is the stuff we get into and signaling, but it's about relationships. It's about building trust. It's about connections and creating these places, these workspaces where people actually want to come in, right, and they want to grow. William, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you having me on.
Well, I know you're bouncing all over the place. We had a little chit chat, right? The pre podcast conversation, doing all kinds of leadership talks around the globe. So I appreciate you being here today and spending some time with us.
Sure.
Let's get right into it. You have been in leadership for a long time. As I said, I'm being kind. I'm one of those seasoned folks too. We'll call it a few decades. No one needs the number, right? We don't need numbers. What is the biggest change or series of changes and shifts that you've seen since you've been working at it in this lane?
I think the biggest problem that I have seen, and one of the reasons that I retired last year to go into this line of business, is the fact we've lost the art of communication. I blame part of it on the wonderful world of technology. And it has done a lot to force us, I don't want to say force us, but put us in a position where we find it more convenient to communicate in any other way other than face to face. And that has permeated not just a business world, but that permeates our family life. And so, when COVID came along, it just made it worse. And then you had a generation of people that should have been, getting out in the workplace and starting to learn how to build genuine relationships with people they work with. Well, what were they doing? They were confined at home. And so they got, their iPads and their phones and computers and all that. And all the communication was electronic. And so we've got to get back to the point where we understand that communication is truly best when it's face to face.
Now, you're someone who, as I understand with your company, you've had about a 90 plus retention rate
I
over
have,
the decades.
yes.
And that's unheard of. As someone who has spent the last 3 years doing research for my upcoming book, which is called How to Manage People Who Don't Give Up, retention is in itself a
Yeah,
lost art, right?
it
No one
is.
knows what it is, no one cares, people don't try. So, what would you say leaders misunderstand about why people stay loyal to a company or why they leave one in this era that we're in now?
Well, everybody wants to feel important. Everybody wants to feel like they're a part of something. Everybody feels like that they can contribute to something. And that brings a sense of pride and a sense of feeling like I'm growing. And I think where we're missing the mark in corporate America is we look at our people as numbers. We look at our people as assets. And, we've got to start looking at people far closer than just what do they bring to the company from a bottom line perspective. Everybody is a human being that has real challenges in life, has real concerns in life, have real issues in life, but they also have real dreams, real aspirations. And when we totally disregard that aspect of a person, then they're never going to feel like they are important. And they're just going to be looking for the next opportunity that's going to pay them more money.
1,000% agreed, right?
Mm.
It's about the people, right? It's
Yep.
people power. That's why
Yep.
even HR has been changing their reputation and their namesake as like chief people officers and
Yep.
these kinds of things to really put the emphasis on the right place. Okay, that
Yeah.
said, so if we're agreed that leadership is about people and not power, then why is it that so many leaders, especially today, we look at how they're appearing on social media, they're confusing authority with
Mhm.
influence?
Well, I think part of the problem is we don't choose our leaders in a smart fashion. We look at people who have had success leading a project. We've looked at people who have had longevity. Even the fact that there may be some nepotism involved in how we choose our leaders. And that's not the way you choose leaders. You choose leaders based upon the fact, do they have the ability to care for and nurture others? Do they have the ability to look beyond themselves to have aspirations of helping their team succeed? In my career, and I say this all the time, my greatest success in my career was my people. And it's not just during the time that they were working for me. Even now, I have people that worked for me through the course of my career that are doing great things. And I stay in touch with them, and I'm so proud of them. Because to me, it was, I gave them the opportunity to spread their wings, to grow, to succeed, to do what they wanted to do without, let me just say this. Got too many leaders who feel like their people are their competition. Your people are not your competition. They are the greatest compliment to your ability to lead is their success.
I am really feeling the pressure of transactional relationships. We're in that kind of era.
Yeah,
It's not even, hey, I'll do this for you if you do this for me. What I'm seeing so much of is, you need to do this for me,
yeah.
right? And then it's stopping that way. So, given this era that we're in and these workplaces really feel transactional, can we still build loyalty today? And if so, how?
Well, I think so. And I've always told my teams, we win together, we lose together. Yes, people are going to have individual accomplishments, people are going to have individual failures, but at the end of the day, the success that we have is a culmination of how we work together and our ability to be able to complement each other, even if it maybe is not my area, to support each other, to build each other up, and to be successful. And the way that I always did that was, it was important to me to build a one-on-one relationship with each person that worked for me. And you can't do that the same way. What I would do with one person wouldn't work with someone else. And so after I did that, and it wasn't to be best buddies, right? It was to help me understand how they thought, how they worked, how they processed information and situations. And once I was able to do that, then I was able to step back and let's look at my team holistically. And I knew how to deal with each one, not only just in an individual setting, but in a team dynamic. And I think part of the challenge that we have today is we're not willing as leaders to invest that amount of time in our people and in building those relationships. Part of it is the corporate America or corporate as a whole's fault because all we think is important is the bottom line. Well, there's a lot of things that go into bottom lines other than monetary numbers. And I think we've lost that understanding.
I want to pull on that a little bit more.
Okay.
Given we've got AI and all of these other tools that quote unquote make our lives easier for us, right? They communicate on our behalf, they send the messages out, and we've gotten into this habit of blast, right? Blasting emails,
Yeah.
blasting our reels, our clips, our this or that, our posts on whatever our social media channel is. One of the things that I'm noticing is that we can't make that connection one to one anymore, just as you said, not just because of the communication, but I think because we've all been conditioned to have to get our message out as broadly as possible and to
Yeah.
as many people as possible. We're in
Yeah.
this influencer era. And
Yeah.
don't you think that's counterculture of what you're doing, trying to build relationships one to one and starting there? Are people even ready to look back to the old ways of doing so?
That's interesting because, as I go around the world and speak, um, I hear a lot of people saying, I wish I had known this earlier. I wish I had understood this earlier because it would have changed the way that I do things. So I think there is an appetite for changing the way that people lead, people look at, relationships, particularly in their work environment. But I think we've got to do a better job of communicating that. And I think part of the challenge is you look at in the corporate world, all of them seem to have some sort of quote unquote leadership training. Well, it's not leadership training, it's managerial training. And, we use boss, manager, leader in a, same kind of category, and they're not. There, you couldn't have three further different disciplines and how you deal with your role and how you deal with people. And so leadership, again, to me, is all about the relationship. And I've had a number of people through the years, I will pull back, let my team do the work. Well, what do you do? I said, well, I lead the group. Well, but what do you do? I said, well, watch me. Why don't you just follow along and watch me, how I interact with my team, how I support my team, how I get the dynamic of that team to work together. And, take me out of the equation and see how well the team works. And you'll understand what leadership really is and how it benefits an organization. I don't have to contribute on the day to day, A to Z, getting the work done in order to be an effective resource for a company. I need to make sure that the efficiency of what we are doing is not only accomplished, but the people that are doing that are satisfied, feel like that they are seen, and feel like that they have at the end of the day the potential to grow and to be fulfilled in what they're doing.
One of the things that struck me about your platform is the empathy that
Yeah.
you bring, right? And that
Yeah.
is overt. But what's interesting, and I'm going to tease the whole gender thing here right now.
Okay. Okay.
As a woman, empathy is either considered to be soft, so
Yeah.
you're soft as a leader, or empathy is considered to be feigned, right?
Yeah.
You're inauthentic, you're not really like that, you're trying to do that to connect. But yet you're out there on your platform practicing and espousing empathy without softness.
Yeah.
How do you do it and still hold people accountable at the same time? So you've got that right blend of softness, but accountability. There is a line.
Well, yeah, absolutely. There is a line, and you've got to be careful not to overstep it. The way I've always looked at it is from the perspective of what someone is going through and the challenges that they're dealing with. They don't have to be important to me. They don't have to be something that I understand. But what I do need to understand and what I do need to appreciate and what I do need to deal with is the fact that it is real to that person and it is something that they are having to deal with. And so I need to find the balance and the blend of how do I support them getting through whatever the situation is that they're dealing with so that one, they come out better on the other end than they would have normally. And it doesn't adversely not only affect their job, their reputation, their work, but also personally that they have the support resources and all that they need. A perfect example is, I don't have to get so personally involved that you cross that line that you so correctly stated. But I do need to know that if a person's having financial situations, if they're having, mental situations, whatever, what resources does my company have that we can help them get associated with, get in touch with, get help from? And, oftentimes that would involve bringing HR in and letting them be a part of the process. But again, it's understanding that what a person is going through, while I may not understand it, may not seem important to me, it's real and it's important to them. And I need to do everything I can to support them in whatever manner is possible.
I want to go back to something that you said just a bit ago about how many leaders are neglecting their relationships with their staff for whatever reason. They
Yeah.
don't want to invest in that one-on-one, or they argue they don't have time, etc.
Yeah.
So what's happening is that leaders are building emotional debt when they're neglecting these relationships.
Yeah.
Can leaders ever pay it off and recover in this era of not just skepticism, but cynicism and distrust?
It's an incredibly difficult thing to do. Once you've lost the trust of your team, once you are perceived as insincere, fake, whatever you want to call it, it's incredibly difficult. What I always suggest to people is one, step back, from how you've been and just have an honest discussion with somebody that you feel that you can trust, that is going to give you straight feedback, right? And just say, look, this is the issue I'm having. How do you perceive me? How do you see this situation? And listen to the guidance. And where the guidance is spot on, take it. Changing is not weakness. Changing is strength for the better. And so once you have that counsel, once you get that feedback, then go to the team and just say, guys, I understand that I probably haven't done the best job I could have, right? I have not been the support structure that you need. I've not done the things that, a leader should do for his group. I'm sorry. Too many people, again, we talk weaknesses here. People, if I admit wrong, if I admit, that and say that I'm sorry, oh, that's weakness. No, that's a strength. That's one of your greatest strengths because, again, everybody's human. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has challenges. But with the exception of very few surgeons that I know of, everything's fixable, right? And so you can, if you're willing to look internally at yourself, realize your weaknesses, realize your mistakes, willing to make changes, go to them, admit it, and then proactively take the road of change and showing that it's real, then I think you can, over a long period of time, rebuild it.
If a leader wants to find the truth, right, about how they're
Mhm.
really doing, what do they look at? Are there numbers, culture? Is it how many people and how they're behaving in the room when the leader's not there? Where do we look? How do we figure out the real truth?
Well, I think the first thing I always looked at was, does my team feel like that they have the ability to come and talk to me honestly? And when I say honestly, without fear of, if they say something they know I'm not going to like, I'm not going to take out retribution on them, right? And so if, open door policy, if I see people coming in and out of my office, on a regular basis, I feel pretty good about the relationship that we have, particularly if the conversation is constructive. But then the other thing I look at is when we have group dynamics. One of the things I always told my people is I do not allow anybody to throw someone under the bus, right? We win together, we lose together. If something goes wrong, I will deal with it, right? And we will address it together and we will fix it together and we'll move forward. And then, if there's something that needs to be done after the fact, I'll deal with it. But don't come to me and throw somebody under the bus because I'm going to throw you out of my office because that's not the way we deal with things.
Excellent. Love it,
Yeah.
William. That's what we need, right?
Yeah.
That's the kind
Yeah.
of thing. We've
Yeah.
got to stop all of this finger pointing, this, that, right?
Well, and again, it's the it goes back to I said earlier, your people aren't your competition, right? They're your greatest complement and completion of your work as a leader. But you also need to make sure that while you have people that are going to excel over others, and certainly you're going to need the ability to maybe grow a little bit faster, a little bit, more thoroughly than other people, it can't be at the expense of someone else. You can't build someone up by tearing someone else down, and that's just not the way to do it.
Actually, that's a very good segue for my next question. How many of the modern leadership problems that we're seeing and organizational culture problems have resulted from us promoting all these high performers who were never taught how to manage people, let alone lead them?
Yeah. I think a great deal of them are caused by that because I go back to the point we were talking about earlier. How do we choose leaders? I look at somebody, oh, they did great on that project. We completed that project on time or ahead of time, under budget, blah, blah, blah. Well, that doesn't mean that they're a leader. That means from a technical perspective or from an operational perspective, they were able to get the work done in a manner that was beneficial to the company. But if that's what you're basing it on, then you need to go back to each of the team members that was a part of that and say, okay, how did this work? How did this, good things, bad things, and let's talk about it. The other thing that when we talk about this is, you know, particularly today, technical aptitude is just sky high with so many people because of the abilities that you have to learn and to grow. But technical aptitude is not where we fail in leadership. It's again in the personal development of relationships. And so when I looked at somebody, who came to me and wanted to be a leader, I asked two things of them. I said, first of all, why do you want to be a leader? Right? And if it was for the money, if it was for the glory, if it was for the power, whatever, no, that's the wrong answer, right? And I'm not saying no to you, but we're going to work on why you want to be a leader, why you should want to be a leader. The second thing I did is I looked at them as they dealt with close friends and family in various situations to the best of my ability to do that. And if they treated those people disrespectfully, in a boorish way, then I didn't have any comfort that if they treated people who were close to them, that they loved, they cared about in that manner, that people that they didn't know, didn't care about, didn't have a close relationship, that they would treat them in anything other than that manner or even worse.
Oh, bingo. If family members treat members of their own
Yep.
group and
Yep.
cohort
Right.
like crap, yeah,
Yep.
I really have no use for
Yeah,
them. They're
yeah,
mean and
exactly, exactly. And one thing I've always tried to tell people is, yes, you can help people learn to be leaders, but there is an innate piece of that that's either there or it's not. You either have the ability to care about other people and want success for them, or you don't. And if you don't, the difficulty in bringing that person up to a level to be a good leader is very difficult and may not be worth the investment.
oh, absolutely, right? That's why these books, like I've always looked up to giraffes, Leaders Eat Last, these
Yep.
kinds of books, right? They're
Yep.
more than books, they're whole
Yep.
philosophies
They
on
are.
leadership
Yep.
that if you look at somebody like to your point that, oh, so and so is competing with me, rather than saying, oh, you know what? I'm really good at these things, but geez, you are
Yeah.
amazing at those
Yeah.
things, and I
Yeah.
suck at those things. So if we
Yeah.
work together, oh,
Yeah.
great,
Yeah.
right? Then we can get it
Yeah.
done.
And I
People
loved
miss
it. Yeah, I loved it when my people would excel past me because, I was happy for them. To me, this is a small portion of my life, right? I don't want to work 80, 90, 100, 120 hours a week, because at the end of the day, I'm going to sacrifice something else that should be more important to me. And I don't want other people to do that either. So as you mentioned, we've got to figure out how to work together to make each other successful, make each other, have a work-life balance that makes sense.
Oh, for sure. So, as we're heading into the close of our podcast here, William, if someone in our listenership, in our audience, is thinking, I'd love to build stronger loyalty with members of my team or one individual of my team, and they want to start tomorrow, what is one small behavior change that they could do that would matter most?
What I always did was I talked to my people on an individual basis and found out what their favorite thing to do was outside of the office, right?
Okay.
Or even during the course of the day. And as I went to build that relationship, I didn't have to enjoy it. I didn't have to like it. I didn't have to be good at it. But I did involve myself with them as they did it. So it brought them a comfort to where they would open up to me. It never works if I bring somebody into my office, bring somebody into the boardroom and says, "Oh, let's sit down and talk and get to know each other." Because the dynamic is they still feel you're here and they're here. And so they're uncomfortable. I got to get people to a comfort level to where they will communicate with me on an even keel and feel like they're sharing and doing it in a manner where it feels natural. And the flip side of that is I have to also be willing to share, right? I can't expect a one-way communication and then not open myself up to someone else.
Oh, exactly. People forget, pardon me, that dialogue means back and forth.
Back and
Two,
forth. Yeah,
right?
that's right.
Not monologue,
Yeah.
right?
It's a
Yeah.
two-way street, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Bingo, bingo. Now, William, where can people find you, learn about your company and services? How do they reach you?
I have a website. It's called williamcdavis.net, williamcdavis.net. So you can find me there. Every page has all of my contact information at the bottom of each tab. I'm also on LinkedIn. And for those who are going to be in Toronto, Canada, I've got two speaking engagements there, May, I think, 13th and May 25th coming up.
Excellent. Now, last question, signature
Mhm.
question to close out the show.
Sure.
If we got to look in that Dallas closet of yours and there was some footwear that represented you, it personified and embodied you, William C. Davis,
Yeah.
what are we looking at and why are those shoes, pardon me, or boots, whatever they are, totally you?
Well, you would find about a dozen pair of cowboy boots. Again, I grew up on a 1,000 acre ranch, and so that was my life for a long time until Dad retired back in 2004. And so hard work, personal building of relationships. I mean, that was how I grew up. You couldn't work a ranch successfully unless you had personal relationships with somebody, worked together, understood what each other was doing, understood what each other was going through, and that was kind of the foundation for how I've lived the rest of my life.
And I'll
Not
pass.
always great at it, but I've done the best I could.
Well, there you go, right? Most of us, that's if we can lay claim to that we've done the best we could,
Yeah.
then kudos. On
Yeah.
your cowboy boots, do you have, you said of a dozen pairs, any one pair that's a favorite? Are they super scuffed? Do they have fancy markings? Like talk to us.
No, they're all skin. I've got several Cayman alligator pairs, and I've got some Poruku, which is a fish that they find in the Amazon. I've got a couple of pairs of those. I think both of those are probably my favorite just because of the way they look.
There you go. We needed that detail. I have one pair and they have glitter on them because I'm a glitter girl,
Well,
but
there
there
you
you go.
go. There's
Yeah,
nothing wrong with that. Got to be
here you
seen
are.
when you go out, right?
That's right, right? All right, William, thank you so much for being on our show. We wish you continued success spreading the messages, not only messages of leadership, but really the tactics and strategies that people need to not only follow, but embody in order to drive change within their organizations. Thank you, William.
Thank you.